And we should probably do a formal roll call again. So I'm going to say your name and then I'm going to ask you to identify yourself. So Mary, we'll start with you.
Mary Maslowski, here.
John?
John Ketchum, I am here.
Donna?
Donna Kalanick, here.
Robert?
Robert Doan, here.
This conference will now be recorded.
And I'm Dave Nixon, and I'm here. So we do have a quorum. Okay, that takes care of the roll call. Is there any public comment? Hearing none, we'll move on. Approval of the CPC minutes for June 11th, 2020, remote meeting. Do I have a motion?
I actually had a couple of comments on the minutes.
You've got the floor.
I did see your email about your changes to the minutes.
One thing was just an edit. Wait a minute, let me find my email so I can remember what it was I was.
You sent it this afternoon at 4:18.
Yeah, I've got it here. So the first one is under item number 2. I just thought you should fully identify Joe Powers as the interim town manager, there's a missing word there.
Yeah, manager didn't seem to fall in there. The interim did, right, but not manager. So I need to add the word manager before Joseph Powers.
So something a little more. Oh, administrator. Okay. Well. Right. Yeah. Well, that was my slip. I told her to insert the word manager, but that's the wrong word. So. Okay, so the other thing was toward the end in the part about the discussion that we had last time about the public meeting, Jan is attributing comments to me on the conservation commissions where it says, I said, it is awkward, but is being done, which isn't exactly what I said, and it's awkward to have that being put in the minutes. I would prefer it to say, which is closer to what I said. I went back and reviewed the tape, actually, just because I didn't think I used the word awkward at all, although I did. What I said was, it is a little awkward, but effective, and the commission is getting its work done. So I would just like to have that reflected in the minutes.
And I will change that.
Anything else?
Nothing else. I can make a motion to approve the minutes as I just suggested they be amended.
Is there
second, Bob?
Okay, so Bob seconded. Can we have a roll call vote, please? And I'm going to start again with Mary.
Mary Maslowski, aye.
John Ketchum, aye.
Donna?
Donna Kalanick, aye.
Bob?
Bob Doan, aye.
David? Aye. Okay, that concludes that with the amendments. All right, the next, by the way, I'm sorry. Welcome to the finance director. I know she's on. Welcome, Carol.
Hi, everyone.
Okay, that takes care of the approval of the minutes. We're gonna just skip a little around a little bit if it's okay with the board. And I want to go to the articles that we're rescinding tonight. And I'd like to start with the first article. That would be Article 52, the public storage facility for $120,275.40. Would anybody like to make a motion?
David, can I just ask, I think that the motion needs to include where the original appropriation came from, so which CPC funding bucket?
Right, well, when you make the motion, I would refer to it as whatever bucket that the CPC funding is appropriate to attach to. And I'm sure Carol would correct me on that. So, do we know what bucket it came from? I don't have that in front of me right now.
I have it listed as historic reserve, 18,946. And from the fiscal year 2019 estimated annual revenue at 101,329.
Okay, perfect. Donna, do you have those numbers?
I'm just going to
Are
read
you
them.
adding them in the process right now?
Yeah, so it's 120, 275, 40 is the total.
Correct.
18,946 is from the historic, and 101,329 is from the FY 2019 reserves. And I think there's 40 cents in there somewhere, or maybe I just wrote that down wrong.
No,
They just never transferred that amount, or we didn't deal with the 40 cents.
Okay, that's probably it.
So we're going to lose the 40 cents.
Well, someone's going to gain it, but we're going to lose it for this particular purpose. Anyway, is that a motion?
Yeah, I move we rescind the amounts that I just listed from the funding sources that I identified.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mary, second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call vote? We'll start with Bob.
Bob Doan, yes.
Donna.
Donna Kalanick, yes.
John.
John Ketchum, yes.
Mary.
Mary Maslowski, yes.
And David Nixon, yes. Okay, thank you. The next would be, have an opportunity to talk to Eric today. Eric's been out for a while, and I just confirmed these with him. I wanted to make sure these were correct. So from ATM 17, Article 29 and Article 30. Article 29 is $10,014.20. And Article 30 is $6,490.16. Can I have a motion to rescind those two articles, or would you like to take them separately? It's up to the board.
I guess the question again is, where did they originate from? So where do they need to be rescinded to?
Both of these were from the undesignated fund balance.
Right.
Both articles.
From the 2018?
2017.
17. ATM 17.
Is that correct, Carol? Is
From
it?
I'm sorry. From the 2017 undesignated fund balance.
Okay. Okay, I move that we rescind $6,490.16 related to Article 30, Veterans Memorial Fitness Station, and Brooks Park Expansion Phase 4, Article 29, from the 2017 undesignated fund balance.
Of
2017.
Okay, but the amount from Article 29 would be,
$10,014.20.
correct. I'll start leaving the cents on, folks. My apologies. All right, there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Bob, second.
Second.
All set, Jan?
I'm just double checking. I thought Donna said 6,790.
$6,490.16 and $10,014.20.
That's correct.
It's the change that I just wasn't getting.
Again, that's on me. So again, there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I think Bob Doan seconded, Dave.
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor on a roll call vote, we'll start with Mary.
Mary Maslowski, aye.
John?
John Ketchum, aye.
Donna?
Donna Kalanick, aye.
Bob?
Bob Doan, aye.
And David Nixon, aye. Okay, so that takes care of that. As soon as we get the minutes done, we'll send the finance director a copy of the minutes.
They have to be approved at next meeting before I can send them to Carol.
That's right, that's correct. Okay, takes care of that. Now, CPC funding. Carol, you have the floor.
Okay,
Get big there.
are there specific items that you would like to discuss?
Okay, to the board, questions. We'll start with John.
I don't have questions at the moment.
Mary.
So my question is, Carol, is just, with the money that's rescinded, will that have to wait to get certified with free cash in the next fiscal year? It won't get certified with free cash this year, correct? But next year?
That is correct.
Okay.
Donna.
Thank you. Carol, have these been re-estimated based on the current revenue situation in the state? And if so, were they reduced? By what percentage?
So the estimates here for state revenue, which I'm assuming that that's your question. What I've used is the last information that we had received from the Department of Revenue. And that information came by the way last fall. I have not reduced them any further because we have not received any updated information with regard to whether these revenues would be further reduced.
Okay. You may not know this, or you might, but does the town offer the CPC exemption as part of the tax program? So can you apply if you were getting other exemptions? Do you get the CPC exemption as well?
So I would have to be able to come back to you tomorrow with certainty. I believe that they can, but I would just want to make sure that my answer is correct for you.
Okay. And I just had one other question. Do you file the CP1?
I think I missed other than your question, do you file the CP1? I think I missed the remaining question.
The CP1, CP2, and the CP3.
I file all the CP. forms with the Department of Revenue.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to step in here for a second. For a layperson to understand, what did you just discuss?
There are annual forms that have to be completed and sent to the Department of Revenue. Those forms are in our year-end abundance of documents and financial information that is shared with the Department of Revenue. And that becomes under the responsibility of the finance director or town accountant in the communities. So these are financial forms that are completed, and they're based on the revenue and expenditures of the CPC funds. It designates, the remaining balances in all of the different, I guess I'll call them buckets. And I'm happy to share with you those forms. I can send them to you tomorrow for the FY19. They have not been completed for FY20 yet.
David, can I just follow up on one thing about that? In terms of the CP3, because the CPC is now giving money to the Affordable Housing Trust, they're required to file a form with the Community Preservation Committee or perhaps with Carol about their use of CPC funds. So that's why I was curious who files these, who files the forms.
I had no idea that took place until now. Interesting. Carol, could I get a follow-up to that, please? At your convenience?
Sure.
Okay. Tony, you all set?
I'm all set, thank you.
Robert?
No questions.
Okay. I have my usual question for the finance director, which she's going to give me a tough time on. And that is the rescinded monies. Does the COVID-19 episode change the particular point of view of DOR that we can't use these rescinded monies right away? Is there any type of emergency funding that DOR would have for CPC so that we use the funds? We're not waiting an additional year to apply those?
I'd be happy to reach out and ask that
So
question.
we can file?
I would be more than happy to reach out and ask that question.
Okay, all right. Anybody else have any questions? Apparently not. Ms. Coppola, thank you very much for attending tonight.
You're welcome. Have a nice evening.
You too.
Thanks, Carol.
Okay, moving on. Let's discuss the public meeting. I saw emails that went around, and does anybody have any questions, recommendations, suggestions about this public meeting? And the next question I would direct to Mary is, are we okay to do the 16th?
No, the 20th.
I'm sorry, the 20th.
So far it looks good. I just wanted, I messaged Jan this morning. I just need to double check a couple of things on it and make sure we're okay. I should be able to give her the okay to publish the ad tomorrow. The issue is just, again, it's going to have to be a remote meeting because in any building we're limited to no more than 25 people. Not that we ever get 25 people, but we need the ability to make sure that they can access it. So I will confirm with Jan. We'll get that, get the notice out. She's got the notice all prepared. he had sent it over to me. So we'll just confirm that and get that out.
Okay, would you please notify me, because I'd like to have an opportunity to start to have a discussion with Larry Valentine, Chair of the Board of Selectmen, and see if he can kind of give out the date and the time and what we're doing for CPC.
Sure. I copy you anytime I send an email to Jan, so I'll make sure I do that again.
Okay, that's great. Great. Thank you very much. Anybody else? Any questions, comments, recommendations, suggestions? Go ahead, Donna.
Okay, so we're talking about August 20th right now. Yeah, not September, right? August 20th.
Yes.
Okay. And I just want to go back to the discussion we had at the last meeting, that I think it's really important to get the information out to prior applicants that we're going to be holding this meeting. And I don't know if we've decided if they're going to be able to join us or whether they're going to submit comments by email, or how we're going to handle it. But I think it's really important we let, I don't know how far you go back, 2 years worth of applicants that you're going to be holding this public meeting for input.
Okay, John, would you give us an idea of what's going to happen, how we're going to do this?
Well, I can talk about my thinking and what I've been looking into since the last meeting. There are several items that refer to my notes. So the first thing, it doesn't directly address Donna's point, but just in terms of informing the public, we talked about various things at the last meeting that have been done in the past, and which Jan knows how to do and has documents prepared for the most part to do. There are some other things we can do and should do. One is put a notice on our webpage on the town website. There is a process for posting news items which will go onto the main page of the town website and also onto our webpage. And we can also get those entered into the town e-blast process, which I believe is the name, where the town has a way for town residents to sign up to get notification across various topics, a long list of topics, either via text or via email or phone message. I think I unfortunately signed up for all three for some things. So sometimes I get an email, a phone message, and a text all about the same thing. And that's a good way to blast stuff out. At least people are paying attention to that sort of thing. And also, I think we discussed wanting to get a notice on Channel 18. And I had a discussion with Caleb about this, and I think I more or less understand how to get all this done in a couple steps in coordination with Caleb. So that's one thing that does not address specifically informing previous applicants. I think that's a separate process. Another thing we talked about was an interview to go on cable TV. And we can do that. All we need is a volunteer to be interviewed. I happen to be married to the person who normally does the interviews for Channel 18 in Harwich, and she's more than willing to do such an interview. She did it last year. I also talked to Jamie about how we could do this, and Jamie's suggestion was that we secure a half an hour of go-to meeting time at a mutually agreeable time and just use the go-to meeting facility that the town has to record a video that we can then just forward on to Jamie, and she will do the same thing she would have done with one of their normal videotaped interviews. So that, and Mary, I'm hoping that you can help us find a time. It would be just a question of coordinating when we can get a slot with the town, with when Dinah is available to do the interview, and when whoever steps up and volunteers to be interviewed has time. So,
I can give you a time frame. When you have a sense as to when Dinah's available, just give me a telephone call in the clerk's office, and
okay.
I can kind of look at the calendar then. I'm going to say morning and like during the workday is actually better right now because we are pretty well booked solid with night meetings between the permitting boards and FinCom going through to town meeting at the end of September. So we're pretty well booked out.
So back in the good old days before COVID, Dinah typically did one or more interviews on Wednesday morning at 9 o'clock, if I remember correctly. So I don't know whether that would end up being the right time or some other time, but during the day is fine. I think I don't think there's any problem with that. So we have to, so we'll get in touch with you once we get the ball rolling. And then we can record the thing and send the thing to Jamie, and she will do what she does with that. So then the other thing that was hanging out there is what's the process for running the meeting? And Donna was asking, how are people going to participate? And we talked to Larry at the last meeting we had, and he forwarded on basically just their agenda, which has text about how people can participate, through a gatekeeper. And I was going back and forth about that myself, about what the best way to do it is, and sort of think up a slightly less organized approach will probably do for what we're doing. And I actually drafted up some text about how that would go, which maybe I'll just read what I drafted up and you guys can react to that. It's text. Basically what I took was what's in the Board of Selectmen's agenda describing how people who want to do public comments should proceed. So I'm just going to read this. I took their text and edited it and changed it around a bit, but I started with their text anyway. Those members of the public wishing to make comments, you may do so by 1, first send an email to cpccomment@town.harwich.mass.us and send emails at any time after the meeting agenda has been officially posted. That email address doesn't actually exist. I talked to Foster about getting a temporary email address, and he didn't seem to think that there would be any problem with that. In the subject line, enter request to speak your name. In the body of the email, please indicate the CPC related topic that you wish to speak on. No further detail is necessary. 2, you may participate using your computer and the GoToMeeting interface or simply using your phone. Connection information can be found below. 3, during the public comment portion of the meeting, the chairman will call on members of the public who have sent requests to speak emails in the order that the emails were received. There will be an opportunity at the end of the public comment portion for others to request recognition from the chairman to speak. 4, in order to minimize audio disruptions during the meeting, all attendees should mute their microphones unless they are speaking. The chairman or meeting coordinator may mute the audio of any attendees at any time to reduce disruption of the current speaker. Use *6 to mute and unmute your phone. When you join the meeting by phone, you should turn off channel 18 or your computer if streaming the meeting. So that's my take on how we can organize the meeting and keep things under control. I'm interested in what other people think about that.
Well, and John, you want to tell them the second method, which is how the conservation.
Well, right. Conservation doesn't have any of that organization. Members of the public can attend, and, you know, in conservation meetings, we have...
Not, John, real quick, not physically attend.
Right. Right. Yes. No, I mean, the meetings are like this, but members of the public with an interest in what's going on in the conservation meetings do attend every meeting one way or another. A lot of those attendees are either applicants or their representatives, but there are sometimes neighbors and other people who have something to say about one of the applications or one of the issues before the board. And sometimes there's just one applicant. Sometimes for bigger projects with more at stake, you've got, you know, 5 or 6 people in the meeting having things to say. And really, we haven't had any problems actually coordinating all of that. It's a different situation because typically Amy has talked to everybody before the meeting who comes on the meeting. Occasionally there's somebody that Amy didn't expect, but usually Amy is doing a lot of behind the scenes coordination. And getting emails here is sort of an effective way of doing sort of what Amy does. I mean, we could skip the email warning and just publish instructions, or not the email warning, the request for people to inform us ahead of time. And I think we could probably manage the meeting that way too. I wouldn't be opposed to that. Asking for notification up front that people want to speak will just allow us to have a little better idea of what's going on. And I think I've only attended one of these, or maybe I attended one just after I started in 2018, but seems to me that Jan or maybe you, Dave, were pretty well aware of who was going to show up ahead of time anyway. So I don't know, I guess that's an open question. Do we need to establish an email address and get request emails for people to let us know? Or we could just give them your email, Dave. Ask them to send an email to CPC.
I got it. Mary, go ahead.
So what John described with the email, that's the process the Board of Selectmen use. FinCom might start using that process as well. The only concern I have with the email, we can certainly set up an email. The only concern with the email is that somebody should be monitoring that email during the course of the meeting. So you've got to worry about how good your access is and whether those emails are going to be able to be accessed, because undoubtedly somebody will pop on during the meeting and want to comment. And, you know, that's the way the Board of Selectmen choose to control the meeting. What John described with the Conservation Commission is exactly what 90% of the other boards are doing. And what we talked to the staff about doing is when they log in a half an hour early or 45 minutes early, every time somebody pops on. So John can see who all the attendees are. I can see who all the attendees are. And just like we all can, but we'll ask them what their name is. We'll adjust their name on the schedule. So I can go in and change David, you show up as David, I could actually go in and change you to David Nixon so that everybody knows who's on and who's speaking. And we keep track of what application or what topic they want to talk on, so that then either the chair or the host, which John is acting as, or like in the case of conservation, Amy, in the case of planning board, Charlene, can then pipe in at the appropriate time and ask if that person is still on and still wants to comment. So, you know, we can certainly do it either way. The only concern I have with having an email is that it has to be monitored during the meeting, or else I think you run the risk of missing people that pop on and want to comment timely and just didn't kind of get an email out 3 days in advance or whatever.
So I have a question about that, which is, I mean, I wouldn't have any problem monitoring the email, assuming, I mean, I think if we get that email, you know, I will get credentials to access the email through the town email server and through the browser client, which I guess is where everybody does that. So I don't have a problem monitoring it, but I also thought that it would be reasonable to just let people get on the meeting and pipe up.
Agreed.
Dave can invite further comment, and anybody who has something more to say can just talk. I mean, it shouldn't be too chaotic. You know, people can request just in the meeting to talk.
Correct, and that's how planning board done it. That's how conservation's done it. How we've done it with historic. Everybody has the credentials. One of the reasons for using the email is sometimes to control how many people get credentials. And on occasion, they'll release the credentials when to people who want to comment at certain times. So I think that's kind of where this part of the reason for having the email. I personally don't mind either way. I think we've been able to manage it in the conservation style and planning board style fairly well. I'm happy to say whatever the pleasure of the board is what we should do. You know, I have no preference either way. So.
Go ahead, Robin.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the second method of just opening it up and letting people ask questions during the meeting or in that method. I like last few years, it's not too many people come anyway, so I don't think it won't be uncontrollable.
So you're suggesting not bother with the email stuff at all?
That's correct. No email.
Okay. All right.
Donna.
So my only question, and this is where I was trying to go the last time with the email thing, was in the past, when you hold a public hearing, if people can't come in person, have you allowed them to submit comments to the CPC in writing to be considered at the public hearing or not? Or do they have to come in person? This is like in past public hearings.
That you're talking in terms of absolutes. That hasn't happened in either case. Mm-hmm. It's not mandatory for them to come and be in person, and yet it's not mandatory then for them to submit information for what the requests are. We simply opened the forum, people showed up, we had our public meetings. I don't know if that is go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, I guess where I'm getting with this is, you know, given the constraints that we have, and certainly people are more comfortable with this format than they were, let's say, 3 months ago. But the whole point of the public hearing is to get public participation. So I think what I was trying to say the last time is, would we consider, if people were not able to join via the virtual platform, allowing them to submit comments to the regular CPC address
ahead of the meeting that potentially like the clerk or somebody would read during the meeting as these are additional comments that we received, just in order to, allow public participation as much as possible. I don't think we need this extra layer of email us that you're going to speak. It was really, do we want to allow comments ahead of the meeting to the regular CPC address about whatever interest people might have in how CPC allocates its money?
Robert?
Yeah, I think that's fine. And when we send out information on the meeting, we simply say, if you have questions and you're not going to attend, just email the CPC or send them in writing. And then we read them. Dave, you would read them during the meeting.
That's right. They send them to the CPC address at Town Hall.
Right.
That's something we could do in the advertisements. We could advertise them. So absolutely. My only concern is the format right now is the Board of Select. I watch a lot of the Board of Selectmen meetings. I have no life. And as I watch them discuss how they put their presentations together and how they plug in public comment, it seems to me, I've heard time and time again, that you can only public comment on what's on the agenda. Whereas before, when you could go to a Board of Selectmen meeting in person and ask any question you deemed to ask, whether it was new, old, whatever the case was. So I just don't want to get locked into what the selectmen are doing as far as their public comments concerned, that it has to be an agended item. That's not what we're doing. We're soliciting for comment from the entire general population of the town of Harwich. Go ahead, Donna.
The only thing I would say about that, and I am involved in a lot of selectmen meeting, is that they are dealing with multiple agenda items. So they're trying to control public comment on multiple agenda items. We are holding a publicly advertised solicitation, as you say, for people to comment. So I think actually sort of letting people come on or allowing them to provide comment via email is going to garner more comments than if we try to, restrict too heavily how it's done. And I think in a selectmen's meeting, they have to do that because they have multiple agenda items that they're dealing with.
Okay, well, you and I will agree to disagree on that, but in the context of opening this up, having people come in and just have general comments, I like that idea.
Yeah, so I think that's fine, I guess. But I think we should just talk about how we're going to organize the comments, assuming there are 5 or 8 people there. We're not asking for any heads up ahead of the meeting about who's going to be there and what they want to talk about. Then it's going to be up to Dave to sort of solicit input from the people who are on the call and figure out who has something to say, and then put some order in it and, recognize people one after the other. So, again, if we refer back to conservation, we have an agenda, and so we're just going down the agenda list and recognizing one party after another. And sometimes there are several speakers on an agenda item, but that's not complicated. In this case, you're going to have some number of people who want to talk, and you're just going to have to organize their access to the meeting and decide who's first, who's second, whatever. So
right, that's a relatively simple thing to do. As long as you have a list of names, it's simply letting them
I
know.
need a list of names by who's on the call that aren't CPC members.
Correct.
Okay.
But John, you're going to see that when people sign in, it pipes up and tells you somebody signed in, either on the phone or on a computer.
I know.
And then
we have a list there. Yes, I know that.
right.
So
But then like what we do on planning is Charlene will just keep track. She will write everyone down. And if in the planning board situation where we have an agenda with multiple items, then yes, she will write herself notes under each specific section to remember to call on somebody. But, to the point of this public hearing, it's really kind of a free-for-all public hearing because we want to hear what everybody has to say. So I don't know that we have to be worried about organizing them. It can just be a first come, first in line, first to talk, because we're just soliciting input from everybody about how they think we should spend the money. So I guess I wouldn't be as concerned about organizing who's going to talk next, as long as we've kind of done the job in the half an hour before the meeting to keep track of who's on the call.
Robert?
Yeah. Why don't we just publish the agenda and go by our categories: historic, recreation, housing, and then maybe even have a general administration or how does you administer the funds. And then Dave would just go on the list. Okay, we'll talk about historic. Anybody who has a historic question, please speak up now.
That makes sense. Donna?
I think that's a great idea. And I only had one other comment, which is, does the notice typically get distributed to department heads and committee chairs as well?
Do you want me to answer some of those?
Go ahead.
Okay, first of all, in the past, Kathy has always emailed all the past recipients over the last few years. That was your first question a while ago. And the second thing is, the reason it's really important that we nail down the date, most of y'all are representatives of our core committees. So you all will be taking back this information that we're having this meeting, and you'll be telling your committees about this. So in addition to us sending it out to prior project managers and their categories, everyone on this committee is also representing our core committees, and you all will be talking about it. So that's how we talk about that's how we get to the chairmans. If you guys want me to email the chairmans, I don't have their emails. I don't mind doing it. You all would have to get me those emails.
Yeah. Is there
we always relied on our committee members to take it back to their committees and announce it. And that's why it was really important to this committee to have not to have this meeting so early in August. That's the reason we pushed it back to the 20th. So everyone would have, if we set the date and had it firm, we could send you all out to your original, your original, committees and boards and talk about it at your next meeting before our August 20th meeting. So that's how we handle those chair people.
And is it typically sent out? I mean, Mary, I'm assuming there's a department head list that it could be distributed to.
Donna, I'm sure there is. I think typically we relied on administration to notify all the department heads. And pretty much if departments had in their wheelhouse that they were going to start sending in applications, they typically show up to the meeting. I want to say last year we didn't have, not this past year, but the year prior, we didn't have anybody really show up. And a lot of those applications were just, if I remember correctly, we had to extend our time frame for applications. So we just didn't have kind of that push from the department heads at that meeting. This year was the exact opposite. I think they did show up and they did let us know that they were going to submit applications, which it's always nice to have more people than less. So I think we've typically relied on administration to let the department heads know that hey, this is coming up, and if you're interested, now's the time to go speak up.
And
Actually, I mentioned this to Amy the other day, and she already knew about it and told me she'd heard it in some department head meeting. So I think they're already spreading the word, just in the administration.
right, I will make sure that the assistant town administrator has the information in his hand. I will send him a memo inviting all the department heads to our meeting. Is there anything else we need to discuss? So let's get it settled with the 5 of us that are here. Is this the format we want to go by? To have an open format at the time, invite them, first come, first serve. We can go by categories. I actually like that idea. And work from there. Is everybody comfortable with that?
Sure.
Works for me.
Sounds good.
Jen?
I don't vote.
Okay, I thought I heard in the background. Okay, so that's what we'll do. So John, that gives you your marching orders.
Yeah, well, it's easier for me. There's a bunch of things I don't have to do that I thought I was going to have to do, so that's fine.
Okay.
No big
The
deal.
other thing is, I still would like to have that interview on Channel 18.
Right.
Are any of the board members that are present willing to take that on?
I nominate John.
Faces of you people.
Well, the interviewer has already refused. So, no, John, I respectfully decline that invitation, Mary. Thank you.
Okay.
Anyway. I do appreciate your confidence, but.
I'd be happy to do it. Doing it in the morning might be a little problematic for me, but I also think that Bob would be great if he were willing to do it.
Nice job, Donna.
Joe's not here. We could nominate Joe.
You know, it's funny because in one of the previous meetings, I asked Joe if he wanted to take that on. And
I think you did,
I wanted
actually.
it in the affirmative, but I'm not, it could be my recollection is.
So we could check with Joe, and if Joe's willing to do it, great. And if not, I'll be the backup for it.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
So
Is there anything else? Go ahead, John. I'm sorry.
I just want to get a better sense of how confident we are that this is going to happen on the 20th of August. Because I thought there was some equivocation in Mary's response at the beginning of the meeting about that.
I just can't. I can't access my meeting calendar from home, John. And I double checked, and I didn't think to double check it before I left the office today. So I literally ran out to make it here on time.
That's okay.
But I'm pretty sure the 20th we're fine. If I remember correctly, there was some discussion about whether Finance Committee was going to try to meet, and I think they are not going to meet on that date now. So I just have to double check that.
Okay.
But we should be taking precedence on it. So I'm telling you 99.995. It's August 20th.
Okay, great.
Okay, thank you, Mary.
I do have one other question, Mary.
Yeah.
Last year, we wanted to see if we could run this information, the announcement of our meeting in the Harwich Chamber of Commerce, and I have it in my notes that you contacted them, but I don't know if it worked or, you know, if they ran it in their e-newsletter or anything. Do you know?
I think they did. I'll reach out to Cindy this week and ask her. if she can put it out in the newsletter.
I
And
see Cindy a lot of mornings for coffee, Mary, so I'll talk to you also.
Perfect.
okay. Once we get the credentials on the announcement, I can send it to y'all and you guys can have it to talk about, but we won't have it until we get it. So, I don't know. The other thing is, Bob, is there an e-newsletter for the Historical Society? Or do you know?
No, they just do a paper one, like a quarterly.
Oh. Okay.
But I do think they do some emailing. You know, I'm not on their committee, so I don't know what their current status is.
Okay. Do we know who we could send something to?
I can find out and let you know.
Okay. That'd be good.
So one of the things that I'm going to do is edit the CPC webpage to, right now it has text about, that I put up there late last year about the applications that have been submitted, which is clearly out of date. And I want to replace that with an announcement about the public meeting. I don't know who visits the CPC webpage on the town website, but I should edit that. And I think I will just take whatever text Jan has already prepared for public announcements and put it up there. And I'll talk to Jan about that. But I guess before I do that, of course, we need date confirmation because I don't want to put something up there with the wrong date. So, and I will also be trying to set up the news announcement that will go on the town website, and the e-blasts, which also have to have that same date information. So, Mary, once you confirm the date, will you let us know? Or if there's any ambiguity about that, let us know as well. So, again, I don't want to set up a public announcement that turns out to be wrong.
Okay. Jan, I have a question. Are you still holding some of Kathy's brochures that she had produced?
I have a few, yes.
We have comment in the public section. Do we have the ability to recopy some of those to send them to individuals if they want a copy of them?
You mean you want us to mail out the trifold to some individuals?
If they request it at the meeting.
Sure, but don't we have the digital one on the site?
Yeah.
It's there.
So we have the digital one on the site. We should direct them to that. That's just me saying it, because I don't know when we'll reprint. It's right there on the website. It's pretty easy.
Let me just confirm that. Make sure it's still there. I don't know why it wouldn't be, but let me just.
Because in the process of this Channel 18 interview, if we could mention that particular document, I think that would be a good thing as far as the CPC is concerned. Go ahead, Donna.
If it's an electronic document, it might be something great to send out along with the notice if you're emailing people about the notice.
The only thing is, you know how sometimes the PDFs are huge in size?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a feeling that's a biggie, to be really honest. I don't know how big it is, but in my book, I think it's a really big one. And the people that were emailing, they already know who the CPC is. I'm not emailing, people who don't know. I'm emailing people that have participated or are part of the town and already know. but I can see. I just know that people don't open, it will either get stuck in their email and they may not receive it, and I don't have a way of telling if they've received it or not. I prefer that they receive the notice that we're having this meeting rather than have it get stuck and I don't know they've heard about it and it's summer and people are busy and blah, 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 you know?
Jen, this is what I'd like you to do. Whoever decides whether it's going to be Joe or Donna to do the Channel 18 interview.
Yeah.
Make sure they have a physical copy of that brochure with them so they can show on the air.
Not a problem. I can, if you want me to mail them out to people, I can. I don't know how many I've got. I don't have addresses.
You don't have to go that far. Just as long as whoever does the interview has a physical copy of that document to put on camera.
So we can also include a link. It is still on the website.
Okay.
We can just include a link to the document.
That sounds brilliant.
In any email, or we can also include a link in any announcements that get sent out in any way. So we should do that.
That sounds good. I can do that. Then that wouldn't be too big of a size,
No,
blocking somebody's email incoming and easy peasy.
Okay, any questions or comments further on this subject? All right, so I think that any agenda points for next meeting? Go ahead, Donna.
I just wanted to, a couple of meetings ago when we were reviewing the warrant articles, I had brought up that I thought it was important on a couple of the warrant articles to have the total project amount there, not just the amount that the CPC was giving. And then town meeting got delayed and we never went back to that discussion. So I just want to make sure, because I'm assuming the warrant's gonna be going to print at some point in the next month or so, or by mid-August, that we address that, whether that's you as the chair addressing that with administration or Carol, who I believe wrote our articles for us.
So what are we looking for? The total amount of project monies?
Yeah, there was a couple of them. I don't have it with me, but I know the playground was one. I think the lights at the fields were another, where it was only listing at the amount that the CPC was granting for funding, not the total project amount.
Okay. One thing about the warrants that I don't know if you folks know, there's a subcommittee that's been set up between the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen. They were in discussion the other night, and they've got a lot on their plate. I don't know. There was a question initially whether all of the CPC documents were going to be on the warrant. There was agreement, disagreement, agreement, disagreement. I don't know where that stands going forward. I will get the answer to that question. So I just want all of you to keep that in mind. I'm going to go to one of those subcommittee hearings and ask that particular question. So I don't want the CPC to get left out. Okay, anything else by anybody? All right, and Donna, I will do my best to get that information for you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are we all set? Roll call to, no?
No, we haven't
Organization?
taken item C under new business.
Oh, possible reorganization discussion. I forgot all about that. Okay. I still would like to remain chairman, believe it or not. So, is there anybody else who would like to put their hat into the ring?
I fully support you still being chairman, Dave.
No, thank you, sir.
I
David,
nominate
you need a motion.
for chairman.
Second.
There a second?
I move to close nominations.
Second.
That was good. I've never heard that one before.
That's what you do during a nomination.
Okay, all in favor? Roll call
No,
vote?
roll call.
I understand. I got it. John?
So we're voting on closing nominations or voting
Yes.
on
We're voting
Okay.
on closing nominations first.
John Ketchum, aye.
Donna?
Donna Kalanick, aye.
Mary?
Mary Maslowski, aye.
Robert?
Bob Doan, aye.
And David Nixon, aye. Now, is there a motion on the floor?
I nominate Dave Nixon as chair.
And
Is
that was seconded already.
Okay.
Okay, Mary seconded it. All those in favor, roll call vote. Again, we'll start with John.
John Ketchum, aye.
Donna?
Donna Kalanick, aye.
Mary?
Mary Maslowski, aye.
Robert?
Bob Doan, aye.
David? Nixon, aye. Okay, so thank you very much, folks. Again, I'm looking for all of your support on these items coming up because I think when it comes around, we're going to have some interesting discussions on town meeting floor. So, okay, we've covered this topic.
No, you have your
About
vice
anybody.
chair.
Oh, that's right. Did I get that?
Anybody like to do it?
I nominate Mary McSousley as co-chair or second.
And I second.
Thanks so much, Bob.
Okay, all in favor, roll call vote. John?
John Ketchum, aye.
Donna?
Donna Kalanick, aye.
David? David Nixon, aye. Robert?
Bob Doan, aye.
Mary?
Mary Maslowski, aye. Begrudgingly.
Okay, it's a done deal. All right. Anything else on the agenda? All right. All of you have a good weekend and stay safe. Could I have a roll call vote to adjourn? Well, we have to have a vote first.
I move to
motion.
adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay, starting with John.
John Ketchum, aye.
Donna.
Donna Kalanick, aye.
Mary.
Mary Maslowski, aye.
Robert.
Bob Doan, aye.
Dave Nixon, aye. Have a good weekend, folks. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Dave.